Welcome to the Robin Graham Show, the podcast for purpose-driven women who want to achieve sustainable success without having to be on social media.
Hey, beautiful friends, welcome back to another episode of the Robin Graham Show. Friends, I've got to tell you, it has been a while since I recorded an interview. It's been a few weeks and I feel a little rusty. I was almost like, wait, what do I say for an intro? Anyway, here we are. We are back. We are recording this episode the week of January 20th, and it's just unbelievable how fast the year has gone. We're already in the third week of January, and I feel like the year is going to continue to go at this pace. And I do want to encourage you, if you have big goals this year, if you have things that you feel are challenging in your business, let's connect. The group program is just craving new members. So we have so much there, and I would love for you to check out the Sustainable Business Growth community. That the women are incredible. It is faith-based. So everything we do, we bring the Holy Spirit in for guidance, for assurance in our decisions. And that's really how I'm led to be able to help other people. So if you are interested in more information there, the link will be in the show notes. All right. I am going to start by reading an excerpt from the book, Love Echoed Back. I cried out and he answered, by my friend Elaine Lankford. And what we're going to talk about today after I read this is her journey, her unique journey to responding to God's call and what she has now created as a nonprofit to empower other women to be able to step forward into their calling, their purpose that God has laid on their hearts. So it's going to be a really great conversation. So here we go. Can you say to Jesus, I know you are great. I know you are awesome. You can handle my issues, questions, and doubts. In fact, you can handle all of me at the same time you handle everything else in the world. It is no match for you. Here I am. Use me. Slowly, over time, I would feel a little stronger and I would heal. More importantly, I would be different. Jesus would give me a little more direction, a little more hope, and all the while, a furious faith was growing. I began truly to understand that my Creator knew me. He knew when to give me more and when to hold back. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Without further ado, Elaine, welcome to the Robin Graham Show.
Thank you so much, Robin. I so appreciate you.
I am thrilled you are here, and I am so thrilled to be able to share not only your story, but the story of She Steps Forward International and the phenomenal work you are doing. But before we dive into that, will you please tell the listeners a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point?
Well, my journey starts back in 2008. And pre 2008, I was actually in a long-standing nursing career. But in 2008, I came face to face with a real life Job moment, Job like in the Bible. And all of a sudden, my career was gone over something that I could not control and over something I could not fix. And within a few months of that situation ensuing, my father passed away, and he was the glue to our four-person nuclear family. And then 6 months after that, my husband at 47 was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, today he's doing fine, but at that moment, it was so super scary. And all of a sudden, my life was in ashes, and I couldn't figure it out. Because the key to my life was that I had known since sixth grade I was going to be a nurse. I can tell you the classroom, the window I was looking out of, and that still small voice that told me to do it. And now that career wasn't present. And I was like, God, what is happening? Fast forward through the next few years, I struggled to figure out what was the message he was sending me in all of this pain that I had just experienced. And what I realized was that as a Christian, someone who had grown up in church, I had not really fully identified myself with Christ. I had identified it with my career and all those cute little diplomas sitting on the wall, and God was pulling me out. But what I didn't realize until a few years later was that He was pulling me out into something greater. And I am super grateful for the experience now, and I wouldn't go back and change it. And it's made me a better person. And so, because of my experience, God whispered to me a few years afterwards to write the story, which is what you're holding in your hand. And because I wrote the story, I had to, like everyone else who writes a book, figure out how to get my message out to people. And that was my step into the world of entrepreneurship. I learned to blog and to market and to go out and sell that book hand to hand, person to person, do speaking engagements. And that is how I stepped into the world of entrepreneurship. And I have never looked back.
I love it. And now today you're coaching alongside building the nonprofit. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it was a few years after I got into selling my book and blogging that God whispered in my heart on a missions trip, no doubt, to Nicaragua in the stillness of that country that I was supposed to come home and raise up his daughters. And I had no clue what that meant. I was not someone who had a big group of women that I hung with, but I was someone who in our local church had done small group leadership and had mentored women on the side. And so that was not an unfamiliar thing. And because I had started this entrepreneurial venture, I found a coach because I knew there were things about business that I didn't know. And I wanted to find someone who knew. And I was very lucky to find a nice Christian man who sat me down and started me on my adventures of entrepreneurship, of really setting the business up right. And I just became fascinated with that. And so as someone who's always trying to improve myself, I got involved with the John Maxwell team, got the certification, continued to learn, and just realized one Sunday as I looked up and I'm doing all this stuff for myself that there were all these women sitting out in the congregation and what a wasted potential there was. I knew these women, I knew their stories, I knew their heartbreak, I knew how they could help other women. And yet every Sunday they came in, checked the box, and went back home and did it all over again. And I was determined at that point to figure out how to get them up out of their seats and start using what God had given them to further the kingdom.
Oh, I love that. And there's so much here, right? There's so much to this story because when you think about how many times we go through circumstances in our lives and we think, oh, this is it. I can't do one more thing. I can't take one more minute. I just can't. And yet he pulls us up and he sets us straight on the path. And, when we trust him, we know that he will make our path straight. It's so hard to see and it's so hard to understand. But then we hear a story like yours. But not only did he bring you up and out of that and give you a purpose and lay that on your heart and direct you and guide you, but he allowed you to see the potential in other women who otherwise may have gone completely silent, may have never used their voice to help someone else because they themselves didn't see their potential or were so inundated with life, they didn't hear his calling.
Mm. Very true, very true. And I think that's what happens. And we get so wrapped up in the day to day and we feel so ordinary, but we forget we serve an extraordinary God. And so if we
Mhm.
let him put us back on the potter's wheel and do what he wants to do with us, he will take us on the most extraordinary adventures. And that is what has happened to me through the story of She Steps Forward International. I would not have dreamed back in 2008 that I would be doing the things that I'm doing now, not only here in the United States, but also in Africa.
I love it. So, and I have to say, listeners, I was recently asked, I actually had resigned my position from another board, and which you've heard me talk about face to face in the past. There's a whole episode on that from back in like 2020, I think. But Elaine has asked me to be on the board as well. And I don't take that lightly. And it's a very important for me to be part of organizations where my values align. And I have to say that it it's so God led. And the women that are involved in the organization are God led. And it's just this, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's this almost a light, right? That I
Mm,
can see shining for other women. And I think that is so much of what we need is to be able to hold each other up and guide each other the way we have been led. And something I want to say that or emphasize too, Elaine, is that you recognize there were things that you didn't know, so you sought the help. How often do women, and I think this is a great I guess, story associated with She Steps Forward is that how many times do women, because we think we have to do it all, we try to do this alone, we try to do it by ourselves, and we end up spinning in circles, as so many of my clients say, or not knowing where to begin and staying stuck or procrastinating or getting into a cycle of doubt, fear, imposter syndrome because they simply just don't know the next right thing to do to move the needle forward on their business. So I love that you're giving women who may not otherwise have a resource the
mhm.
resource to be able to gather the information and take action and be held accountable for that action.
And what I love about what God has done and She Steps Forward is one of the things that kind of spurred me is, and I mean no disrespect at all. I grew up in the age of, and still in the age of the great Beth Moore and Joyce Meyer and Priscilla Shrivers. But what I haven't seen in their ministries is them raising someone up with them. And I thought to myself, what will happen when they're not here? Be here anymore? What will the legacy be? Will the ministry stop and the ministry is called by their name? And how would that even reconcile itself when they're not here? And I thought, I don't want to build something that is just for me. I want to build something that's going to leave just a huge lasting legacy that's going to multiply the kingdom. And so one of the reasons I named it She Steps Forward, well, a few different reasons I named it She Steps Forward is because She Steps Forward encapsulates us stepping forward, us making that one move that God needs us to make so that He can take us on this adventure of a lifetime. But two, not putting my name on it because it's for everyone. And God made that clear to me from the beginning that you are not the one at the center. You are there to push other women forward. And it's just a powerful thing when women help women. So when we haven't been actually shown or modeled this model of women raising up women, not that those women have not contributed greatly to our well-being and our coming into our callings, but when we don't see it actively modeled in front of us, we shrink back from it. And we need to build more female coaches. The rate of female entrepreneurship has skyrocketed, and yet the gap is there because there's not enough female coaches to come alongside those women. And we know that we have unique perspectives and needs. And it's great to have a female who can come alongside you and walk that out with you and really understand the nuances that go on in your life. And so I just think it's incredibly important to one, make sure that the ordinary woman remembers we serve an extraordinary God. If you look at the characters in the Bible, none of them were extraordinary before He got a hold of them. And we need to remember that it does take a village to accomplish some of the things that we're trying to do, and that we are, as someone said earlier today in a conversation I was listening in on, we are a body of Christ. We are not an individual thing. We're meant to be in community. And when we come together, we do great things. And so She Steps Forward is really going to work on that. We're going to work up on raising each other up. We're going to work on showing that against what culture would tell us, collaboration can be done. And we're really going to create a safe space for that Christian female entrepreneur to really be able to blend her faith into the marketplace. Some places in the marketplace, we don't have to be so overt and use the Christianese. Sometimes we just need to learn how to use the principles of the Bible to show people God's love, and they come along with us eventually. but we have just separated the two for so long. We've not had the guidance that we need to make that happen. And I just see that as a gap that we can certainly fill, and that we can accomplish more. And who God has brought to the table has just been incredible, because the story, we all have similar stories in the way of having this love to see others, nurturing others, having distinctions of, yeah, maybe I didn't fit in that square um, peg in the church, but God has this round circle for me to jump into. And so getting women to free themselves and understand, you you love on the local church, you respect the local church, you know that it has its role, but not everybody can be on the stage in church. Not everybody has a role constantly in church. There's this whole big world out here that needs to be served. And that's really where Jesus wants you to be, matured and going out. And we're determined to help people feel comfortable in doing that.
I love it. So you started thinking local, right? Sitting in church, your local
Yes.
environment, and you are international. How did that come to play?
Oh my goodness. So in 2019, as I'm progressing through 2016, is when I kind of started officially up to 2019. God had given me this idea for the She Steps Forward conference, which is now called the She Steps Forward International Women's Conference. And when I started in 2019, I just had this idea that I'd create this conference, I'd network, I'd bring in some ladies from the local area that were a little bit further than most people were in the church, and we would show them what we had done to accomplish the things that we were doing, and that it wasn't that we had all this stuff behind us. We were just obeying God, and He was opening doors, and you can do it too. And so once I launched that conference, God just did this funny thing, because He is a funny God sometimes. We sometimes put Him in such a small box, and then He has to jerk us up and tell us, no, remember, I'm this extraordinary God. And I got an email about 2 or 3 weeks before that conference from a young lady that was in Kenya. And I thought, wow, I have won the Kenyan lottery. You know how you get all those overseas emails and they're always promising you money. But this was really sincerely a young lady who was curious about conference. And I emailed her back and I said, yeah, we're having this conference and here's the link to buy a ticket. And I thought, that'll be the end of that. And then sure enough, 7 days later, she bought a ticket. And I thought, wow, she's for real. So I got back on and emailed her and I said, hey, if you're coming all the way from Kenya, the least I can do is pick you up at the airport and make sure you get to your hotel and host you a little bit. And so we got talking, got on WhatsApp because technology is awesome. And turns out that she actually was not unfamiliar with the state. She actually has family here on the East Coast, which made it nice for her. And she was bold enough, because we named the first conference, we theme it every year. The first conference was called She Steps Forward into Destiny. And destiny is a huge word in Africa. They name their children based on what they think their children's destiny will be. And when that caught her attention, she knew there was something she wanted to come get to bring back to her women. And so when she arrived, we hosted her. She came to conference and hung out with us. I got a chance to spend a little bit of time with her after conference here in my area of Hampton Roads and take her around. And she asked me before she left to go up north to see family if I would come to Nairobi, Kenya. And I thought, I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but let's talk about it. And so once she got home and got settled from her trip, was back in Africa, we got on WhatsApp and Zoom. We planned it out. She gathered some, this is pre-COVID. She gathered some women from her church, and I got curiosity up of people in my church, and I had 3 people who wanted to go with me because they just couldn't believe all of a sudden I was going to Africa and what that was all about. And we landed in Nairobi in February of 2020 before the world shut down. And God was not finished showing off, because Teresa was well networked at that point, and we had 60 ladies from 5 different African countries represented in that first conference. And it blew my mind. I thought, you are the extraordinary God that I asked you about. And if this is what you have for me, Lord, just keep opening the doors and I will just keep walking through them. And that's how we got started going to Africa.
And you said to me at one point in time, maybe earlier today, that He opened a door and you walked through it. He opened a door and you walked through it. And that just happened over and over again. And I think to myself, how many doors did I close? And I would love, listeners, for you to ask yourself that question. What doors has he opened that you haven't stepped through? I think it's a great exercise for all of us to do and to open our eyes to what is possible when we let him be an extraordinary leader of our lives versus us trying to live in control. Type A, perfectionist, trying to do it all ourselves. What if we get quiet? What if we listen? What if we knock and we let him open the door? I love this so much. Elaine, how can the listeners connect with you and support She Steps Forward International?
Well, we would absolutely love you to visit our website, shestepsforwardinternational.org. And in what we're doing, we have multiple ways that we would use donations. And so if you have a heart for donating into organizations that are making a real impact, we would covet you being a donor partner with us. We have a four-pronged approach that we use to elevate female entrepreneurs here in the States and in Africa, and that's by holding an annual conference. We're also going to launch our first membership program where people can come in at a lower level and gain extraordinary information from the most beautiful Christian female entrepreneurs and coaches from across the United States who've recorded workshops for us. We also are going to develop a cohort program for those worthy that feel like they want an intensive training, and we'll walk through a 6-month process from start to finish and how to launch their business, ministry, or nonprofit. And the core piece that we are working on is that we want to become a seed money grant organization. And what I mean by that is seed money is the hardest money to find for a community level rising female entrepreneur. Finances keep women out of entrepreneurship by far more than anything. And that's the probably second closest to confidence. So we want to become an organization where worthy women can come in, apply, and get seed grant money to pay for their paperwork, to pay for some training, to pay for a computer if that's what they need. Anything that gets them started stepping forward. That's what we want to do, and we would love to have you to be one of our donor partners. The other thing is for actual Christian female entrepreneurs that are just trying to launch their business. We are going to be having a free 5-day challenge coming up in February, from February 10th through the 14th. And we would love for you to join us in that challenge where we have 5 of our team members pouring into you each day. And at night for our VIP experience, you get to ask your questions and get individualized guidance and advice on your dream that God has given you. And I'll be giving that link to Robin so that you can find out more about the 5-day challenge.
I love it. So, listeners, that link will be in the show notes, as will the website to shestepsforwardinternational.org. And I will also put, actually, you can go to the website for She Steps Forward to reach Elaine. So I'm not going to put her email there. That would be like, I don't know if she'd want that, but I will definitely put the website there, and you can reach out to her at any point in time. And if you do have questions, you can also reach out to me. But most importantly, would you please share this episode so that more people can learn about She Steps Forward International? I just have this very strong emotional feeling that this is going to go somewhere big and really have a tremendous impact. And so if you would share this episode with friends, family members, on your socials, wherever, I would be truly grateful, as would Elaine. So please do that favor for us. And I thank you all for being here, listening till the end, and I will see you next week. And that's a wrap, friends. A heartfelt thank you for being here. I know there are many other ways that you could spend your time, so I truly appreciate you joining me. And be sure and visit the website, therobingraham.com/resources for a plethora of resources to help you grow your business for long-term success.